So what happened when you got home, I hear you ask? Well, for a little while, I was kept in the hospital for about 3 weeks. The new psychiatrist seemed swamped with work, and so I wasn't really a danger to myself or others, and so I was discharged. I tried finding Benoit as soon as I could, but he had gone off the grid, as they might say these days. In truth, disappearing back then was as simple as not listing your name in the damn phone book. Despite living in the guy's pocket for 8 months of my life, I knew very little about him. I knew he was a couple of hours west of New Orleans and he had a sister named Marie. Not exactly solid facts to track a man down by. Soon, I gave up trying. I just decided to try and forget about everything. Vietnam, the tunnel, the woman's voice, but the damn statue was always there as a constant reminder. I kept it wrapped in cloth, afraid to touch the damn thing. Eventually, I did what every other person in New York did with something they wanted to get rid of. I threw it in the East River. It would find good company down there with all the discarded mob weapons and photos of ex-girlfriends. I had a small amount of money coming in from my veteran disability payments. I topped this up by working odd jobs, when I could find work, that is. New York in 1969 wasn't exactly a fun place to be. The city stank from uncollected garbage, and there seemed to be a strike or a riot every other day. The teachers, the sanitation workers, hell, it got so bad even the gays started rioting, and they always seemed a peaceful bunch to me. I lived down near Greenwich Village, so I was right in the middle of the mess. Crime was also a huge problem, and I rarely left the apartment without my pistol. And that's how it went for about 6 months. I worked a little and tried to avoid getting shot or stabbed. Then one night, out of the blue, the phone rang. I generally only got calls from cold call companies. It was a relatively new thing back then, and every asshole outfit with a phone was trying to sell their crap. I picked up the phone. Listen, I don't want to buy radiators or life assurance or mortgage protection, so go fuck yourself, I calmly said. There was a tiny pause. It's Philippe. Philippe Benoit. I see you haven't lost your way with words, came the response. Benoit, Jesus, I tried tracking you down when I got back from Vietnam and I couldn't find a trace of you. Where the hell have you been? New Orleans. Look, I don't want to say much over the phone, but I received a very strange package in the mail. Turns out, someone was able to track me down. My heart sank with the news. I didn't need to ask what was in the package, I could guess. Can you come down to New Orleans? I could offer you work and a place to crash if you need. Do you have anything pressing keeping you in New York? I looked out the window as I listened to Benoit on the phone. 2 NYPD officers were beating the ever-loving shit out of some guy with batons. A small group nearby were raining bottles at them. Yeah, I could do with getting out of New York for a while. I could be there in a few days, I replied. Benoit filled me in on the details of where to meet. He didn't want to talk on the phone as if he thought someone might be listening. The next morning, I threw what little possessions I had into my old beaten-up Impala and hit the road. I didn't bother giving notice to the landlord of my fleabag apartment. Now you might think me mad for taking the trip to New Orleans. I suppose I could have just hung up the phone and forgot about Benoit and the things we saw. But that's just not me. He needed my help. We had been through hell in Vietnam, and I don't mean that figuratively. I mean, I felt we had literally descended into some kind of hell in that tunnel. I wasn't about to leave the guy to deal with this shit alone. It felt good to get out of New York. The journey was long and the summer was sweltering. I drove relentlessly, wanting to get to New Orleans as quickly as possible. I avoided the big cities and only stopped to sleep. On the last night of the journey, I stopped at a cheap motel near a one-horse town about an hour past Birmingham. The reception building was small. The desk was manned by a middle-aged man. I guess he was the owner on account of there being a photo of him in uniform as a younger man on the wall. It looked like it was taken somewhere in Europe during the Second World War. You look a little worse for wear. Long journey? Where you headed to? The owner made small talk as he handed me the key. Houston, I lied as I fumbled with my things. I'm not fully sure why I lied. It's not like whoever these people with the statues were, they could manage to staff every shithole hotel between New York and New Orleans with staff, on the off chance I just passed through. I was so exhausted that night that I fell asleep fully clothed as soon as my head hit the pillow. I awoke in a sweat to the whispers of a woman. It was still night out. I took my pistol from my bag and tucked it into the back of my jeans. I left the room and followed the voice, the same phrase over and over. "Defiler, come to the red house." I walked down the steps to ground level. The voice became louder as I approached the soda machine at the corner of a motel. A light on top glowed red in the night. Defiler. Almost like it was inside my head. I'm not a fucking defiler. I mumbled back to no one. "What was that, honey? You want to defile me? Well, that's gonna cost you. Usually my customers don't put in that kind of eloquent language," she laughed. It was a whore. A well-dressed one at that. A little too well-dressed and refined for this motel. She was leaning near the illuminated soda machine. "Sorry, I was just talking to myself," I replied. The whispers had stopped. "You looking for a date?" she casually inquired. "No, I'm fine, thanks. I just came to get a soda." I quickly responded. "You sure? It's a long way to New Orleans. I could help you relax," she said, licking her lips. My mind froze with fear, but I kept my composure. "I'm headed to Houston," I calmly responded. "Funny, the owner said you were on your way to New Orleans," she dryly retorted. "Well, the owner's mistaken," I replied, matching her tone. "That's what I told him when he said you were headed to Houston. It took some of my charm to persuade him, but he finally told me you had a map that showed a route to New Orleans when you checked in." I said nothing in response. Sadly, what he couldn't tell me was where you were headed once you got to New Orleans. "Yeah, well, maybe your charm isn't as persuasive as you think," I responded, all the while I was considering taking out my pistol and putting it to her head. She tilted her head forward a little. Her face glowed a fiery red under the light of the soda machine. She bared her teeth and her eyes took on the same look of fanatic rage I had seen in the psychiatric's eyes at the hospital. "Oh, you have no idea how persuasive I can be," she spat with unrestrained rage. I reached for my pistol, but she slipped around the corner and ran into the black of the night. "I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for," she said, laughing from somewhere deep in the darkness. Running out after her into the night would be a fool's errand. I ran in a panic to the motel reception building. Maybe she had divulged some tiny piece of information to the owner. I could be persuasive too. Broken ribs usually jogged people's memory. Maybe he wouldn't have any information, but either way, I was going to sternly educate him on the perils of spilling your guts to strange women who offer free blowjobs. The small reception building was dimly lit. There was no one behind the desk. I rang the bell but got no response. Impatiently, I walked behind the counter. I opened the back office door. As I opened the door, the metallic smell of fresh blood hit my nostrils. I covered my nose. The owner lay dead on his back. His mouth was duct taped shut. 2 glass shards had been rammed into his eye sockets. Tough bastard. I didn't give him enough credit. He wasn't falling for her hooker routine, so she had to torture him for what little information he had. Or maybe it was just to send me a message. Now, I wasn't gonna hang around for the cops. Maybe this was a setup, but either way, I wasn't sticking around. I wiped down the office doorknob with my sleeve. My fingerprints being anywhere else in the building could be explained, but not the office back door. I walked to my room with as much outward calm as I could muster. I packed my things and got in my car. I drove out into the night. With luck, I'd make it to New Orleans by morning. I knew one thing for certain. These people, whoever they were, wanted that voice to keep whispering to me. They wanted to know where it was leading me. That was the only reason I was still alive. As soon as they figured that it might be less trouble to torture me rather than just follow me, I'd end up like the owner of the motel. The pistol was digging into my back, so I took it from my jeans and opened the glove compartment to put it inside. As the glove compartment opened, a small clay statuette fell out. I didn't need to look at it. I already knew what it was. I put the pistol away and kept driving. Safety in numbers, I thought, as I sped toward New Orleans. Benoit would have a plan. He always did.